This week, we talk about PlayStation removing games from libraries, a surprising pre-order topping the PSN sales charts, a big multiplayer game on PlayStation being leaked, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to that new Beautiful Bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 23. I am your host, the man who was removed from your digital library by Sony, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, the man who was pre-ordered more times on PlayStation than any other content creator in history, Justin, better known as I Am Zaracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
Not bad. I'll say that it's gotten, I don't know how it is for you, but it's gotten warmer where I'm at right now, and so that's made things quite better as far as just like being able to go out and walk. Now that's something that I had been waiting to do, but it had just been too bitter outside just to go and do that. So now that it's gotten warmer, now I can just go out, and also with the fact that we had daylight savings come by, so that also is allowing me the chance to, after work, just go have a nice good walk and do that after in my evening. So that's nice. But it's been a rather quiet week, I'd say. So nothing to complain about there. How about you?
It's not too bad. I know that there's been like a bunch of stuff I've had to do over the past week. So just kind of, I had talked about previously that I wanted to get my brisket video put out. And so I had to re-record some audio for those portions where my kids were coughing in the background. And so I did that, and it's like, there's definitely a noticeable difference in the spots where I had to replace the audio. But at least I got it done. So I was actually able to get that completed so that I could get it up. So that I could have the brisket pizza one, get that one put together and ready to go up next week. But between that and then just various other things I've had to work on, it's just been a really busy week. Of course, with as I've mentioned to you already, this coming Saturday we are driving up to Tennessee, and it's because Married to the Games, which is podcast I've been listening to since 2013, they're doing their 600th episode. So they do a get together every centennial episode, and so I missed most of them because of the fact that I lived in Alaska, and but I got to go to 500, and we're going to 600 this weekend. So gonna be I needed to get stuff done ahead of time because the podcast, because of the only way that the timing could work out for doing the live show was to do it Sunday evening. So we're driving out Saturday, and then we are driving back on Monday, which means that I wouldn't have any time to work on stuff over the weekend. So I had to make sure that I had everything ready to go for next Monday, done before Saturday. So I didn't have some stuff recorded, so I needed to get some stuff recorded. I had to get some stuff edited, and it's just been like, there's just been a lot to do, and I've mostly gotten my next comparison video recorded at this point. It's fully recorded, and it's basically all edited. I think there's just a few finishing touches I have to put on it, which I can't even remember what specifically I need to do, but it'll be something that I do tomorrow when I have some extra time to work on that, because I did almost all of it this afternoon. But yeah, it's just been crazy trying to get everything ready to go, and then on top of that, trying to get the new church laptop set up properly for streaming and recording stuff, and having some issues with Streamlabs, and I think half the problem I was having was because of the fact that the computer had by default McAfee antivirus installed, and it's completely like antivirus is the most pointless thing to get nowadays because Windows Defender does all that without costing you extra money and without slowing down your system. So, but anyway, I'm not going to get into all that. Thankfully, we have have things set up to where we should still be able to do all the normal streaming and everything this weekend while I'm gone, and it won't be a problem from that standpoint. But on top of that, of course, next Friday, the 22nd, I'm going to be doing my next 24-hour stream, this time for Extra Life, and so I've been trying to make sure that I have stuff prepared for that, and that has taken up a good amount of time. I think I pretty much have everything ready to go, though I'm going to try to see if I can get things imported over to OBS to where maybe I can use that instead of Streamlabs, because OBS is definitely less system hungry than Streamlabs is. So if I can get that all set up ahead of time, then I'm definitely going to do that. If I can't, then I'm just not going to worry about it, and I'll just stick to using Streamlabs because I know it works. And thankfully, my computer has a lot of beef behind it, so it can very easily handle the streaming and running games and everything else all at the same time without any problems. So, yeah, there's probably some more stuff that's been going on over the past week, but those are the things that have taken up a lot of my time, and now it's just a matter of getting through the next couple days with work and the bit of editing I need to do both for the podcast and finishing up the stuff for the comparison, and then just making sure we have things packed up. But my in-laws came in from Wyoming. They just arrived this afternoon, so they are going to be staying here, and they're going to watch the kids and take care of the dog and everything while we're gone. It's going to be nice to have this getaway, especially because since this year is our 15th anniversary, we are treating this trip basically as our 15th anniversary trip, even though we'll still do something on our actual anniversary. So, which means that, of course, obviously I'm not going to be playing Ghost of Tsushima on our anniversary. But, yeah. So anyway, all that being said, what have you been playing this past week?
Alright, so first game that I've been playing was Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, and primarily the reason I was playing that was just because in light of Akira Toriyama's passing recently, I had went to get back into that. I had finished the story, all the story part of the game. I had some side missions that I had done, but I wanted to get into or at least I want to start getting into the DLC for the game, since I had purchased like the collector's edition, or I guess I don't remember what they called it, but the special edition that had at least the first 3 DLC stories. But the one in particular I wanted to focus on was the Trunks Warrior of Hope storyline, just because I liked that storyline from the anime and manga. And actually, one thing I also will say that, just as like, I mean, this doesn't completely necessarily relate to the game per se, but one thing I actually liked about the anime version rather than the manga is the fact that with Trunks in the manga, he was already Super Saiyan during the initial part of the story, but the anime, they kept him completely normal, and he only went Super Saiyan after Gohan's death. So I thought that was really special with the anime, but because I really enjoyed that story, that's why I wanted to play the DLC for that, because like I said, I enjoyed the story, and I just wanted to go ahead and play the game version of that. And it took me a while to get back to controls of Kakarot, just because for some time I had been playing Dragon Ball Xenoverse, so it took me a while to adjust to the controls here, but once I got into it, I remembered it, and it was a whole lot better. But I think overall, though, even if you're just talking about the base game, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is a good game, and it's definitely something that I would recommend, especially if you can find it on sale, which is actually what I did. I got that on sale for, I think, $30 for like the base game and the first season of DLC, so that was nice.
Just a quick question about that. Out of curiosity, when you say that, getting used to the controls was different, Are the controls like vastly different from Xenoverse?
Kind of, yeah. So, for example, with the with the flight, dodging, and then also, yeah, just primarily with the flight and dodging, also with some of the just basic attacks, like, Xenoverse had light and heavy, whereas you just have a single type of attack for, attacking. Oh, another thing also I should mention is the fact that in Xenoverse, you cannot charge your key unless you actually have a skill equipped, whereas with Kakarot, and also with like pretty much every other Dragon Ball Z game, you actually can manually charge your key without needing any sort of special skill. So that also is nice. But one of the main differences is the fact that with flight, as far as ascending and descending, as well as charging, doing a charge dash, the controls are different there, and that's primarily what messed me up, just because trying to fly up and trying to fly down, and also trying to just rush into enemies, that kind of threw me for a loop there. But once I got the hang of it again, then it made things a whole lot easier.
Okay.
But yeah. And the second game that I've been playing is something that I started, was 9 Years of Shadows, and this is a game that I had heard about before it had released, and I had my eye on it. It came out last November. I got it recently as part of a Fanatical game bundle, but it's essentially a Metroidvania. But this one actually does quite a few things that make it unique and stand out. So one of the first things actually I would mention is the fact that you're technically only have 2 hit points. Technically you have 2 hit points, but you have a shield that you could technically say is your health bar, but essentially it just shields you, and when it goes down, then you actually are vulnerable to actually taking direct damage, and once you get hit twice, then you're dead. But the cool thing is the fact that it actually you actually have a chance to recharge it once it goes down completely. There is a little QuickTime event where you can actually have it automatically fill up to a certain point, or once it goes down completely, and if you mess up the QuickTime event, you can actually hold down a certain button and then allow it to charge up and fill up again. So that's interesting. And also the fact that that light bar also serves as sort of like the ammo, or I guess you could say it's the hearts if it were a Castlevania game, for your ammunition. So when you fire spells, that actually drains your light bar, but like I said before, you can still charge it up again. So it does make things very interesting there with that mechanic. Additionally, it's kind of also, they're a bit of a, I guess you could say, a Mega Man kind of twist to it as well, whereas the fact that you get certain different armor sets. As far as I can tell, there are 4, at least that's what I've seen so far in my playthrough so far, and it looks like that's all that can be unlocked, unless there are some secret ones that could come quite later into the game. But each one has a unique ability, and each ability is needed for certain aspects in the game. For example, you need the Poseidon one to actually swim underwater, you need the Gaia one to enter areas with poison, and you need I think it's the Phoenix armor that actually allows you to withstand heat, but then also use glide as well on flames and heat as well in order to just move around. So it does also make things interesting in that aspect. And also, unlike most Metroidvanias, especially on the Castlevania Symphony of Night-esque ones, it's not in RPG. Everything is pretty much fixed, and you can't really gain experience points. But I still think that because of the fact that you do have these different varieties of different types of weapons and armors that you can easily switch between, it does make things interesting. Oh, and one last thing I should mention is the fact that you actually heal your light bar by attacking enemies as well. So there is a bit of a risk reward, because when enemies hit you, they do deal quite a bit of damage, even if you just walk into them. But because you can heal your light bar by attacking them, it does sort of balance things out there. So it's definitely quite interesting, and I am enjoying it so far. And I think that this is one that I will most definitely see through to the end.
Nice. Yeah. Anytime Metroidvania is said, it's like ears perk up. So yeah, very cool. Um, yeah, I can't remember if there was something else I was going to ask about that, but yeah, looks pretty cool. Gameplay looks neat. Definitely. Anyway, so stuff I've been playing. The first thing I'm going to mention, I didn't actually record, mostly because it's been busy and I hardly found time to record in general, but I did jump into Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate on my 3DS because I was curious about that whole frame rate thing. I didn't turn off the 3D to see if it did 60, but I think that the 45 with 3D turn on is probably pretty accurate, because it definitely felt faster than just 30. But honestly, like, I don't know. I go back to it occasionally because I'm just trying to beat that one, or I mean, I'm trying to get a single drop. It's for the Dios gem, which is like the only thing I need in order to get a much stronger hammer that, you know, still has like the slime effect and everything, so that it, you know, can cause explosions on enemies, so I can do Mark of a Hero. But I'm getting to a point where I think if I am going to try and do Mark of a Hero again, I'm not even going to bother with trying to get this drop anymore, because it's like, I can't tell you how many times I've fought that enemy and not gotten that drop. I mean, it's probably been 50 plus times. I mean, over the past, 10 years that I've attempted to get it. And at this point, I feel like I might be better off just trying to go into that fight, with whatever I can, and just do the best I can to get through it. I mean, the problem with that fight is that you have 3 big monsters, and they're all G rank. So you and it's in a small arena too. So you're fighting Ivory Lagiacrus, you're fighting the Brachydios, and then you're fighting an Azur Rathalos, all G rank, and that's why I've been desperately trying to get like this thing to hopefully get a stronger hammer that I can use, so that maybe if I can, for one, hopefully I can avoid them enough to where they'll damage each other a bit, because they'll show up at the same time they'll fight each other. But in general, it's just like, I haven't attempted that in so many years because I just was convinced that I couldn't do it after many attempts. So at this point, I don't know what I'm doing, but okay. Anyway, so yeah, I played a little bit of that. Didn't record it at all. For my next comparison video, the next thing I recorded, not surprisingly, is BioShock 2 Remastered. And this is actually, of course, it runs just as well as the first game does on Steam Deck. And same on Switch as the first game runs on Switch. On Steam Deck, 90 frames per second, all settings maxed out. Gets about 4 hours of battery life, which I forgot to even check what the battery life was on BioShock 1, but seeing as how they are pretty similar in terms of their visuals and performance, I mean, 2 definitely looks better than 1, but on 2, it showed that the performance that it did have about 4 hours of remaining battery life, just under 4 hours, and that was not with a full battery. So I kind of guesstimated that it was just slightly over 4 hours. And that's really good for a game that runs at locked 90 frames. The only time it's not 90 frames is like in transition screens, and that's it. And the transitions, it's literally just like it's loading into a level or something. But otherwise, it's 90 frames per second all the time. But yeah, when I was playing it on Switch, the glare was so bad on the screen, just from the viewing angle, because I have my mount that I put my phone on to record the footage, so that I can see it from above. But the way I have to hold it, I'm kind of looking at it from like an angle right here, but because it's just far enough ahead, the table where I record, that's like right under some lights, so there's like a really bad glare on the screen, so parts where it's dark, it's really hard to see. And, occasionally I can kind of like adjust myself, but I'm trying to make sure that I stay out of, the picture when I'm recording other than, just my hands. So, anyway, but yeah, great game. I can say, you can easily watch the video. It's not going to spoil anything about the first BioShock, other than, saying that a certain character is dead. But even then, they don't talk about how the character died. They don't spoil any of the any of the story plot points from the first game. So even watching this little preview thing isn't going to tell you anything at all about the first game. But yeah, so I recorded all that yesterday. I did play some more Dark Souls, or at least I attempted to. Footage here is still just the same old footage, mostly just because I haven't gotten a chance to record more, and I didn't really play it very much. The main thing is I was trying to, I had visited the old lady to get the poison moss clumps, whatever they are, the ones that are, to help get rid of poison. And so I was getting ready to go down to Blighttown, but then I couldn't remember exactly how to get there within the depths, like the exact route to get back to where the open gate was that you go through to start descending into Blighttown. And instead I ended up falling down to the area with the frogs that if they breathe on you enough times, it curses you. And usually, I've encountered them numerous times when I was in the depths before, but I was always able to kill them quickly enough to keep from getting cursed. Unfortunately, that was not the case the couple of times that I tried playing, and so I ended up getting cursed. I only had one item that I could remove the curse, didn't have enough souls to purchase another one, and so then when I ended up trying to go back there, I got cursed again, and then I played a little bit longer trying to, see if I could get enough souls to where I could get another thing to remove the curse, and then, make another attempt to go back down to Blighttown, and was just dying frequently, and it's just like, okay, I'm done for now. I'm not playing right now. This is just getting irritating. It's weird because it's like, when I played on Switch, I definitely got cursed at least once by those guys. But when I'm playing on Steam Deck, like I was able to avoid getting cursed by them lots of times. And it's just this time, it's like, nope, you're gonna get cursed, and so it's like, I'm not going into Blighttown with a curse on me. No, thank you. I'm not stupid. It's like, there's already enough issues with Blighttown, and even though I have, a pretty good idea of where a lot of the enemies are from having gone down there before, it's still just a matter of, not wanting to be stuck with having that on top of everything else. And it's like, I don't know how many enemies in the game actually put that curse on you, other than those frogs in the depths, but like most of the time that I played on the Switch, I basically never had to really deal with that. After I initially got cursed anyway. Now here's a semi-random question about Dark Souls, because this is something that happened to me recently, and I'm not sure how exactly I did, and I keep forgetting to look it up. I don't know if you know the answer. Do you know why my fire abilities would be lower in power? Like, I have a constant status thing on me that shows like a decreased power for my fire abilities, and that's only something that happened somewhat recently, and I don't really know what caused it.
Huh.
I've tried changing armor and stuff to see if maybe that's what it was, or seeing if maybe it's that it was lower because I was human versus hollow, and none of those things made a difference, and so I was just like, I couldn't figure out what exactly it was that caused it. I just keep forgetting to actually look it up.
I'm just going to ask this question. I don't know, honestly, know if you've already experimented with this, or if this might even be the case. Did you, by any chance, say have a lot of oh gosh, what's it called? Did you have a high number of oh gosh, what are those things called? The not souls, but the
Humanity?
yeah, humanity. Did you have a lot of humanity on you by chance?
I think so.
Okay,
But
I mean, I don't know if that could be a reason why. That's just something that I'm guessing off the top of my head. But granted, you said that you have a mark on you that says.
well, yeah, it's just like a thing under my status bar that shows that the fire attacks are decreased. And of course, anytime I've tried using them, they're definitely weaker than they were before.
That's
okay.
definitely odd.
I don't know.
Certain.
It's fine. I didn't necessarily expect you to know the answer. I just keep forgetting to look it up, and I mean, if I can't find the answer, then I'll ask my other buddy who's played Dark Souls a bunch of times, see what he knows. But yeah. Anyway, so that's basically been my Dark Souls experience lately. But then I did play quite a lot of Persona 3 Reload. Particularly over the weekend. I spent a good amount of time on it, and the footage I'm showing is still just old footage, because I haven't recorded anything new, but, you know, I'm definitely enjoying it, of course. I keep forgetting to take the time to go and remove motion blur when playing on the Steam Deck, which I really want to do because I don't like motion blur in that game. I mean, I don't like motion blur, period, but especially not in this game. So yeah, I mean, you know, it's a great game. Not really much more to say about it. Then I played a bunch of Death Stranding as well. I actually was able to record some footage this time. This time I went ahead and recorded on the Steam Deck, or I mean, you know, from the Steam Deck screen, you know, from above, so it'll be clear how it looks and runs. It does maintain 45 frames per second most of the time. There are occasions where if there's like a lot of rainfall and a lot of stuff in the environment, it can drop down for a little bit. Like there was a couple spots where I had to drop into the 20s for a couple seconds, but that's not the norm. Like most of the time it stays in the 40s really easily. I'm really loving this game, and there's like more and more stuff that seems to be added to the systems as I go along. I've actually been encountering like more enemies, like human enemies, which you, at least at this point in the game, there's no way to actually kill anyone, at least not easily. So, and that's just kind of one of the things in general of this game is like, killing is something that people can't do, because if you kill people, it can cause them to basically explode. Whoa. and cause like serious damage to the environment around you. It just has, it's something that they explain very early in the game, essentially what the idea behind it is. I mean, of course, I'm sure more will be revealed as I go along, because that's a typical Kojima thing, but you know, you have like some human enemies that basically what they do, they just try to steal whatever stuff you're carrying, because they have like this weird obsession with like they get a thrill out of delivering stuff to people, because it's kind of complicated to explain. It's one of the things about the story about, you know, deliveries not being like a normal thing, and so then you have certain people who will you'll call porters, like the character you're playing as is a porter. It's, you know, the career basically, you know, going around and delivering stuff to people. Anyway, so there's some human enemies you deal with, and then you also have those BTs that I mentioned before, which anytime you've seen like trailers and stuff, you'll see either like the shadowy figures that kind of like hover in the air, like above the ground and stuff. But then if they detect you, then they try to capture you, and you get like the black slime appearing on the ground and stuff. And if they catch you, and it drags you off, and then you basically have to fight like a big boss version of one of these guys. and you can technically avoid them. Or I mean, even after you get captured by them, and early on, like, you don't have any way to deal with them. As you progress in the game, you are able to you get certain weapons that are able to attack and kill them. And I'm at the point, where I have some of those items, and so I've been able to, take out a number of different enemies. But anyway, all that being said, this game is just, it's so hard to explain it, to do the game justice, but people who have referred to it as a walking simulator either A, haven't played it, or B, have only played like very early in the game. Because there is a lot of walking. You do a lot of walking. I was reading some comments on a video that was like giving some tips and tricks for the game. And something that someone put, the way someone explained it, I thought was really good. And this is just like a paraphrase of what they said. But basically, most games, they use the environment as a means to get you to enemies. In this game, it's the opposite. Where basically the enemies that you face are a means to get you further through the environment, because the environment is the real boss, I guess you could say, of a sort. It's like the real type of enemy. It's because you're constantly fighting the environment in terms of traversal, because you're having to maintain balance. You're having to make sure that your load is set in such a way, and that you're stepping on the environment in such a way that you're not falling over and getting your cargo damaged. And then you can set up different things throughout the environment, which because it's like an asynchronous kind of game in terms of the online, like if you can put down a bridge somewhere, and then someone in another instance, someone who happens to be like playing as well, if they come through your instance, that bridge will still be there. And I don't know, like I said, there's a lot to this game, and it's just, I'm hooked with this game. Like I want to keep playing it, and it's, of course, it's also a great game for just playing while having something going on in the background, even though I haven't had a whole lot of time for that past week. But yeah, I'm just absolutely loving this game. There is one other game that I played, which I don't have any footage recorded. I may record some footage. It's just kind of something I randomly picked up. So a while back, I saw that there was, on Amazon, you could get a copy of this game, which is on both 3DS and Switch, and it was like under $10 for each one. And this was after the eShop closed and everything. So even though it was a game I was never really interested in, I just decided to pick it up on a whim. More for the collection than anything else, and because it was super cheap. And so today I decided, you know what? I think I'm going to unwrap this 3DS game and try it out. Sushi Striker: The Way of the Sushido. It is like, it's definitely like very casual in terms of the type of game it is. Basically, how the game works is you have conveyor belts of different kinds of sushi with different colored plates, and it's like you're matching colors like you would expect. But the idea is you're all these match plates that you're matching and everything. You're eating the sushi as you go, and then you throw the plates at your enemy to do damage to them. It's like a dumb concept, and it's very like, there's no, the story is stupid. It's dumb. It's very, very much a casual kind of game, but it was just something that I was like randomly, you know what, I want to try it out. And it doesn't have any 3D, unfortunately, but I decided to try it out. I, copied the cartridge over to my 3DS, so I have the digital version now on there, or rather, I backed it up from my physical copy. But yeah, it's like a goofy kind of game. It's the challenge really comes in completing the objectives that the optional objectives they give you, particularly completing it in a lower amount of time. And like, it's not a hard game, but it's not like a super easy game either. It's kind of just an interesting in-between thing, and it's something that I would only play this game casually. Nothing more. That's literally it. Just play this game casually, mess around with it just here and there when I just want something quick that I can, go into one battle and it's like, okay, I'll mess with all these sushi things and throw them at the enemy and see where I get with it. But yeah, it's kind of fun. I mean, it was like, I think I spent like maybe $8 on the 3DS version and maybe like the same or a couple dollars more for the Switch version. I mean, it was super cheap. And this was, I mean, this was months ago that I bought them and just, finally decided to pop it out. Because I remember when they showed it in like Nintendo Direct, I was like, I don't care. This game is not like something I care about. And I still don't really care about it, but I grabbed it. I figured, why not? And I've kind of been on a kick of wanting to play my 3DS some too, so that's part of it. But yeah, I think that's basically it. Yeah.
So I have a question, and I know it's probably too early, and I'll definitely probably revisit this question again once you're done with it.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I know this might not be completely fair because they are two different types of games, two different genres, but how do you feel about Death Stranding compared with Metal Gear Solid?
That's a fair question. It's hard to compare the two because they're just so different. I mean, so vastly different. I think that in terms of the game design, I think that they're on pretty similar levels in terms of like the brilliance of it all. And I am finding the stories interesting to me. Like, I still don't fully understand everything that's going on with this universe, which, like I said, typical for a Kojima game. But I mean, because it's like, they explain it more as you go along, as you get further in the story. But it's always like bat crap crazy early on, and I mean, it's technically still that level of crazy as you go, but you understand it better at least. But I definitely, I mean, like I would say, at least as of right now, of course, Metal Gear Solid 5 is a better game. But it's so hard. Like, I don't feel like it's a completely fair comparison because they're just so different from each other. From that standpoint, just the gameplay is very, very different. And, yeah. We'll see where I'm at by the time I finish the game. It could easily be over 100 hours worth of gameplay. I'm expecting that it could be that much. I've heard, a wide variety of figures on that, on how long people have played, but overall, everyone who's actually played a lot of it have had really positive things to say about it. It's typically the only people who have said negative things have been people who have either barely played it or not played it at all. And like, I could definitely understand just from early impressions, if you were expecting something different, especially going into it expecting something completely different and then being disappointed with it. But I feel like if people stuck out the game, they would probably enjoy it a lot more. And of course, going into it knowing what to expect makes a big difference as well. So, but yeah, I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
Nice.
All right. Anything else before we start getting into news?
No, sir.
All right. Well, obviously we've been going pretty long. Well, I guess we got started late, so that's the main thing. But why don't you go ahead and start us off with this story about these PlayStation games disappearing from people's libraries?
Alright, so there has been a bug that has been reported by at least 50 PlayStation owners who have reported that their digital games have gone missing. And this is something that was posted on Reddit, and that people have been saying. They said, and it's happened for the past few months, where there's been a bug impacting their games. Not necessarily a whole lot of games, but just like some. There have been a noticeable number of games that have been disappearing, and not only have these games disappeared from their accounts, they just can't download them at all. So they can't re-download these games even if they've downloaded them before, and they just say want to download them again. And additionally, if they try to looking through their account, just see, okay, maybe it's just not showing up necessarily here, but it's like if we go through their account settings, they could find the games. It's not there at all. It's completely gone. Sony has said that they are not certain why this is happening. They're still looking into it, and it's still something that's ongoing. And like one person has said that they've even lost, or at least this was on Reddit, saying that they lost to over 400 games after trying to restore them, but they couldn't. And this person also said, I'm a PlayStation user since PlayStation 3, and this account bug is really bad. I hope Sony and PlayStation give a real solution, and if someone knows how to resolve this huge problem, please let us know. So this has definitely been a problem, but that, like I said, Sony is aware of this, and Sony's trying to fix this, but yeah, it's definitely something that's big. And there's another part that we'll mention, but we'll talk about this particular story first. So you want to share what you think first?
Well, I know one thing. Once I heard about this, I've just been like terrified to even look at my Vita or my PS4 libraries, because I'm just afraid that I'm going to do something and it's going to trigger me losing all these things. And granted, I don't have, 400 games. I mean, like my Vita is probably the one where I have the most games. And of course my Vita's modded anyway, so I'm not terribly concerned about it from that standpoint. But this is still a big deal, and I mean, at least Sony's not like, oh, too bad, so sad. At least they're actually doing something about it. They're trying to fix it, and I'm hoping they do, because otherwise that could be a really, really big problem. But yeah, just like this is something that terrifies me, losing access to all those games. I mean, especially just imagine, someone who actually spent full price on all these games and they're just gone. I mean, this is the first time I've heard of this particular type of bug happening. And, as much as people might think, oh, we just hate on Sony all the time, like, I'm a big fan of Sony's games, and I want to believe that Sony will be able to fix this. I'm sure that they have to be able to fix it. I mean, even if it's something as crazy as, like, the people have to submit receipts for all the games they purchase. I mean, I hope it doesn't come to that, because that would be crazy. That would cause an insane amount of work for them, and, of course, for the people who purchase the games. I don't know. I'm just like, what on earth is going on here? I hope that this is something that they can fix quickly, because it's just not acceptable. I mean, of course, it does bring up the issue of, this all-digital future. I mean, what happens if, God forbid, Sony can't figure this out? And then these people just, like, their games are gone. And yeah, I know that one of the things with digital games is technically you only own a license to it, and even then, they can revoke it anytime they want. As, we'll be talking about with something else here in a little bit, but yeah, I'm just, ugh. Like, I've also been itching to play my Vita a bit, and I'm just like, I'm afraid to turn it on and do the wrong thing, and then suddenly all my games disappear. I have a bunch of digital games. Anyway.
Yeah, it's definitely a very concerning thing, and I mean, like, as the one person said, 400 games, like,
yeah,
that's a lot. Like, that's probably, for some people, an entire game library that they have, and to lose all of that, and, like, it definitely is concerning the fact that Sony doesn't even necessarily know, at least at this time, what the problem is. That's really concerning because, granted, it's only affecting a small number of people, but what if this gets worse?
Right.
That's something that definitely needs to be looked into, needs to be addressed. And like you said, I definitely hope that once Sony is able to find this, that they will make things right by the customers, as far as reinstating the games that they had already purchased. And I mean, it could definitely be something that is easier, it could be something that is even hard, because, for example, if someone purchased a game, I don't necessarily know how it is on PlayStation. I don't have a PlayStation, so I don't know how that works. But like, as far as with buying games, are there do you have any sort of digital receipt on the console? Do you just get something sent to your email? If it's the latter, then people have to make sure that they actually kept those emails and delete them. Because if they did, it's really gonna be hard for them to prove that they own the games. And for one thing, what if there are even games that they don't necessarily even remember buying? It's something they bought a long time ago, and they just, I'm kind of like, might just be projecting here, but could be something that they bought and just added to their backlog and may or may not be going back to that game. But so, like, there could be games that they might not even know about that they've bought, that they've lost, and if they have to prove that, or say if they do try to prove the games, there could be games that they paid for that they lost that they don't even know that they lost. And, they technically then just lost that money. And like you even mentioned, it's even worse if they paid full price for those games as well. But it's really just a sad situation. And I mean, there's definitely some more that I want to say, but like, as similar to you, but it's gonna just bleed over into the next topic. But yeah, it definitely is sad, and I do hope that Sony's able to fix this. I hope that the people who lost their games are able to get them back. And that hopefully there's no trouble whatsoever in that regard. But yeah.
I was just thinking about it, and I think that there might have actually had a similar bug happen a while ago with like PS1 classic games. I'm not positive on that, but I feel like that was something that came up, that people were having those games like disappear from their library, and they were able to figure out what the problem was. I mean, I don't remember what it was, but I'm almost positive that was something that had come up before. So if that's the case, then maybe this is something that, hopefully this is something that'll be an easy fix. As far as the like the digital receipts, I'm pretty sure all that would be in like their account history, on their account, for one. But at least like the way that it's always worked previously is that any games you've purchased previously or downloaded previously will still show up in your download list. Like, I even have, I look back and there's, from when I first got a PS3, there's in my list like demos that I had downloaded on my PS3 when I first got it way back in, what was that, like 2010? No, that was probably like 2011 or 2012. So yeah, like they keep track of all that stuff from that standpoint. So I don't know, but anyway, hopefully this will be something that they figure out quickly and they're just able to fix it and everything will be golden. But that, of course, brings us into our next topic, or related, is that there was I'm not sure exactly. I think I missed how exactly people got the demo. I think it was just like it showed up on the PlayStation Store. The demo for Stellar Blade. And a bunch of people were able to download the demo and play the demo. And of course, it's been getting like very positive feedback in terms of like how it plays and everything else, how it looks. But because this was released by mistake, Sony went in and plucked out that license from everybody's thing so that they could no longer have the game on their system. And I'm pretty sure that they removed the game from people's systems, like, completely, not just the license itself. So, I'm assuming that they'll still release the demo later on, but yeah, that's it's kind of concerning that they could do that. I mean, it makes sense because of how digital games are that they could do that, but it's also like, what are the limits? You know, can they do this with things that are not just accidental early releases? Can they do that with any game you own? Revoke your license at any time and say, sorry, too bad, so sad. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I will just add this that I think it was the dev for Stellar Blade. They did actually make a statement saying that the demo is actually coming out. So even if people didn't get a chance or they download the game, they lost it. It's still coming out. It just, as you mentioned, was just early released, and it's definitely really crazy because of the fact that people who downloaded the game, like even if you downloaded it to your hard drive, or in the case the solid state drive, if you were connected to the internet, Sony would just delete it from your hard drive completely, which is definitely scary.
Yeah.
They can go right onto your system and wipe it clean. And the only way you actually could play it is if you disconnected from the internet. That's the only way people were actually able to keep playing the game. And so, like, this is, in a sense, worse than PT, because at least people who downloaded PT could still play it.
Yeah.
But this is definitely worse. And as you mentioned, it's definitely really concerning the fact that Sony is able to go into accounts and wipe these games clean. And in a sense, I even wonder if in that case, it's sort of like the bug might be somehow related to what Sony can do, like some way of being able to access accounts and then just, cut off the games from the accounts. I don't know if that bug is somewhat related as far as like how it works, but it is definitely concerning. And people will say that's why physical is superior. I don't completely believe that physical is superior. I definitely believe that both are very important, especially for preservation, and they both go hand in hand. But I don't think necessarily one is superior than the other. With physical, you are able to ensure that you can play it offline. You're able to do this and that. But if you're able to actually do something digital, and granted, this is more so from a either homebrew or say a PC perspective, you can technically keep your games and preserve them if you can make, say, a copy or a backup.
Mm-hmm.
Like with homebrew on the console, you can, like, say, put games you have, back them up, keep them there, or say run some sort of emulator like a Super Nintendo emulator on a 3DS, or something like that. Or with the PC, you can back up your games. And granted, the best way to do it would be, say, with good old games. Like, you get those games completely DRM free, so you can back those games up. You don't need an internet access to play those games. You can store them on a hard drive somewhere. You can keep them as long as you want. You can make multiple copies. Like, I actually made sure to do this recently, whereas I backed up my entire GOG library to several hard drives just as backups, in case anything ever happens, for that reason. And I mean, so I think that really the root of the problem with digital is just DRM, because if you actually have access to your games completely DRM free, then you actually are in control. But if the publishers or if the stores are actually in control of your games, then then that's the problem there. It's sort of like the same thing which you also sort of see with film, with video and film, with certain stuff, like with Amazon, how a woman lost access to her movies because Amazon decided to revoke the license. And Warner Brothers did that with the films, or yeah, I'm pretty sure it was with the film movies through PlayStation or through Sony, and they were going to delete the games. We mentioned this before, and then they brought it back later on. It's just the problem is the fact that if we're treated, if we're giving these games as a license, not an actual product that we actually own, that's the main issue. If we didn't have that issue, then we wouldn't have these problems. We would be able to keep these games, keep these demos, do everything, and we wouldn't have these problems. And I do know that it's something that is a bit annoying, at least on PC, as far as demos go, because some demos for Steam, they are timed. So even if you, I think even if you download certain demos, if enough time passes, then you can't play it anymore, and instead of having the play button, it just says purchase and directs you to the Steam store to buy the games. So that's annoying, but that also sort of reflects that you don't necessarily own these demos when you add them to your account or say download them, because of the fact that they're timed, and after a certain period of time passes, then you lose access to it. And I mean, granted, other systems do it as well with their own methods. I know that 3DS, for some games, they had limited times that you could actually play a demo before you couldn't play it anymore. But yeah, I guess the basic thing is, I don't think there is a problem with digital, but the way that people, or at least these companies, handle digital is what makes it bad for us. Because, like I said, if you have access to the games or any other sort of content completely DRM free, there's no real problem there, because you control it. You can, have it on your system, not have to worry about it. You can make backups of it, not have to worry about it. But as soon as DRM is implemented or anything else, then there's the problem, because you don't actually completely own or control something that you actually bought. So I think that physical and digital can work together. It's just a matter of which part is going to be the weakest link in a certain situation.
Right. Yeah, good points. I hadn't thought as much about all of that, but yeah, I mean, it is true that if you have DRM free stuff, digital copies, digital can be a great way to preserve stuff. It's just always, my issue is always purchasing games digitally. That is more the issue. Now, when it's DRM free, like through GOG, then that's a whole different story. But in general, like, I don't like what the idea of only having things digitally unless you have homebrew set up to where you can actually keep your stuff without having to worry about them taking it away from you. So, yep. I mean, like, I remember when, so I played some of the Danganronpa games on Vita. I played Danganronpa 1 and Danganronpa 2, and I wanted to go buy 3, but I had been basically just waiting for a sale, because it's like, I didn't really want to spend $40-50 on it. And then they ended up just removing the game entirely. In fact, I think they removed all the Danganronpa games from the Vita store, from PlayStation, or, well, I think you could get it on like PS4 or something, but that was it. And I didn't want it on PS4, so I ended up having to buy it on PC in order to play it. Which, I mean, yes, for a game like that, like, number one, frame rate doesn't matter much. Number two, I mean, it doesn't really look any better on PC than it does on Vita. I mean, it just doesn't. But I, definitely wanted to keep it on Vita because I already had the first 2 games on Vita, and I completely lost my opportunity. And of course, physical was impossible to get because it was already impossible to get. So yeah, that really annoyed me. And of course, then there's been other situations where PlayStation or other companies have pulled games from their stores for one reason or another, usually a licensing issue with, footage that they had included, or cars, or, whatever it happens to be. But yeah, I'm okay with digital if it's done without the DRM being a problem. If there's a way to get around it. It's just, obviously then there's situations like this where they take away your license just because. And if they allow you to keep your license, I have less of an issue with it. But I just don't like the idea of them being able to pull your license at any time. And say, screw you, you agreed to these terms when you purchased this game that you don't actually own the game. Because you will own nothing and you will be happy. That's exactly what they want for us. But either way, I'm sure Sony will figure this out. I mean, it would be in their best interest to figure it out because even though, of course, there are certainly fanboys who will defend them no matter what, I think the vast majority of people are rational and reasonable and would not consider this to be an okay thing or a good thing, and that it's something that absolutely needs to be fixed. So. All right. Any other thoughts on that topic before we move on?
No, sir.
So we have just a bunch of Sony news today, which is kind of unusual that we have this much, but there is a surprising game that is currently topping the pre-order charts on PlayStation, even over exclusives like Rise of the Ronin, which is an exclusive. I mean, like I said, it's exclusive to PlayStation, at least until it comes to PC. I don't know if it's going to remain a PlayStation and PC exclusive, or if it's supposed to be coming to Xbox or whatever. I'm not sure on that front, but the game that is currently the best-selling on PlayStation is an Xbox game, and that is Sea of Thieves.
Audible gasp.
I'm shocked! Shocked! Well, not really that shocked. It's funny, of course, because, this is an Xbox game, and PlayStation fanboys, at least, not all PlayStation fans, be very clear, just the fanboys, always say that Xbox games are trash. But the reality is, it's not the games that they don't like, it's the box that they don't like. And the fact that this game is currently the best-selling pre-order, even over something that is exclusive to PlayStation, is significant. So your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely was surprised about to hear this. I mean, this definitely was something that I was not expecting to hear about, and even mentioned, the fact that this it surpasses other games that have been coming up, especially like Dragon's Dogma 2. That definitely is a game that has been receiving a lot of hype behind. But to also be a Sony exclusive, that really says volumes. And as you mentioned, the fact that, Sony fanboys have been saying, Xbox has no games, Xbox only has garbage, and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, it's the tune changes once the game comes over. And then, people are probably say, yeah, well, Xbox gamers didn't buy their games, they just played it on Game Pass. We're real gamers, we buy these games. Oh, so these are games now, huh?
Yeah.
I thought it was garbage before. Now these are games that you're supporting? So it's definitely very interesting to see that. It definitely makes you think. I mean, something we already know that Hi-Fi Rush is coming over. If that game comes over, what will the Sony fanboys say then? If that game also becomes some sort of big seller, what are they gonna spin? Because I do remember seeing some fanboys saying that Hi-Fi Rush was not a good game because it was so short. Because they're saying, oh, it's not a good game because it's only a game that's like, I think 8 hours long, and they said it's not a great game because it's so short. But if that game does well on PlayStation, I really want to hear what the spin is going to be, because you can't just say that Xbox has games that are garbage and then you're eating up that garbage. Make it make sense.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like something similar. So I had commented on one of the someone's video about Ghost of Tsushima coming to PC, you know, saying that I was excited for it and everything. I have a PlayStation fanboy comment. First of all, he spoils the entire plot, I mean, like the major points of the plot in his comment, which, I mean, I've already beaten the game. It's like, it wasn't a spoiler for me, even though he was trying to spoil it. So I just laughed at him. But, then he says, PC games are trash. And then I just said, oh, so does that, I guess that means Ghost of Tsushima's trash because it's coming to PC. It's a PC game now. But, yeah, it's just, I think that this whole situation, and, you know, assuming that Hi-Fi Rush also sells well, shows at least one of two things. Number one, that there are not anywhere near as many PlayStation fanboys, the psychotic ones that, you know, worship the magical SSD and Jim Ryan and all of these games because they're exclusive. And that they're actually a lot more reasonable, rational PlayStation fans who also just want to play good games. And it's like, oh, this game's coming to my preferred platform. I don't have to buy an Xbox. I can play this game on PlayStation. I don't have to buy an Xbox or PC. I can play it on PlayStation. And that's great. I think that that's the majority of people anyway. But the other thing it shows is that, the other possible thing that it shows, whether it's in conjunction with or opposed to, is that these actual PlayStation fanboys, the ones who say all these things, they're just lying, because the reality is they've always wanted to play these games, and they just didn't want to play them because they weren't on their favorite plastic box. And, like, I get it, you know, sometimes there are games where you just don't want to play it on a different platform. You don't want to buy a different platform to play a certain game. I mean, that's the reason why I haven't bought a PS5. That's why I've never bought an Xbox. But it was never an issue of I don't want to play these games. Like, I remember Xbox One, there weren't a whole lot of games early on that interested me, but then I saw Sunset Overdrive and I was like, that looks like my kind of game. And I contemplated occasionally actually buying an Xbox One for that. And ultimately I never did, which was good because then eventually it was revealed for PC and it was like, oh, okay, I'll just buy it on PC. I still haven't really played very much of it, but it does look and run pretty well on Steam Deck. I mean, you can only really do 40 frames per second, but for me that feels good enough to where it was fun the little bit that I played. But yeah, it's just, I think that I think the reality is that these PlayStation fanboys that say that Xbox games are trash, or that Xbox is trash because it has no games, they actually really want to play these games. And they've just been basically convincing themselves that these games are trash so that they wouldn't want to go out and buy an Xbox. And now, of course, they don't have to. They can buy these games for PlayStation. They can play them. I'm sure that there will be the occasional PlayStation fanboy who will buy the game on PlayStation just so that they can play it and say it's trash. Because I know that there are certain people within that group who will do that. Will literally give Microsoft money to tell them that their games are trash, which is stupid. Because it's like, you know, you do realize that only 30% of the profit here is going to PlayStation and the rest is going to Microsoft. Maybe it's the other way around, actually. No, yeah, it should be only 30% goes to PlayStation and the other, 70% goes to Microsoft. So, I don't know. I just fanboys are just fanboys, and apparently my dog is dreaming. He's probably barking at the kids in his dream or something. Anyway, yeah. Trying to think if there's anything else on that front. I don't have anything else on that front. You got anything else?
No. But it'll just be interesting to see what happens going forward with, especially if more games could be coming to PlayStation from Xbox.
Absolutely. All right, so something interesting has come up. So Sean Layden, who's former PlayStation CEO, or I'm sorry, I don't know if he was technically CEO. I can't remember what his actual title was, but he's the former chief for Sony Interactive Entertainment Worldwide Studios. Basically, has recently come out and said that exclusivity is more of a problem than a perk for systems. To quote him, he says, "When your costs for a game exceed 200 million, exclusivity is your Achilles heel." Let's see here. I know that there was more actual quoting. Oh yes, okay. So for single, maybe I better just read what this article actually says. So this is from Game Rant. And well, the original interview was with VentureBeat. Sorry, I'm just trying to keep my dog from being distracting during this. There. Okay, there. He's awake now. Okay, let me try that again. All right, so reading from Game Rant. In an interview with VentureBeat, Sean Layden, the ex-chief at Sony Interactive Entertainment Worldwide Studios, suggested exclusivity is more of a problem than a perk. He said, "When your costs for a game exceed 200 million, exclusivity is your Achilles heel." Layden highlighted how exclusivity works against free-to-play and live service games by limiting the audience, which limits the revenue. Further, he underlined the success of PlayStation's newest live service game, Helldivers 2, which came out on PS5 and PC simultaneously. While Layden admitted that exclusivity hurts single-player games on a comparatively smaller scale, he justified his stance for more multi-platform launches in this category by bringing the budget into perspective. He said, "For single players, it's not the same exigency." I don't know if that, I probably butchered that word. But if you're spending 250 million, you want to be able to sell it to as many people as possible, even if it's just 10% more. And I have definitely plenty of thoughts on this, so, but I'm going to let you go first, so go ahead.
Wow. So it's kind of like Sean Layden is seeing what Sony's done so far for PC and says that makes sense, and also indirectly looks at what Microsoft is doing, not only with PC but also with Sony as well, and it's going, that makes sense, because when you put a game on one platform, this is something that the fanboys do not understand, is why have a game on one platform if you're going to lose potential sales when you could be putting money these games on other platforms. And it's definitely something that we've seen with the games being ported over to PC, but with Helldivers 2 going day and date on PS5 and PC, and showing that the sales were pretty much equal, that should tell you a whole lot right there, and show that Helldivers 2, if they delay the game, their sales could have been dramatically less than they are now, at least on PC. So he's definitely seeing it. He's also saying something that not necessarily what I'm saying, but indirectly what I've said before time and time again. The games that are being made, these AAA games, are just too expensive to make. So in order to recoup these losses, they need to port these games over to another platform so that way they can make their money back. I mean, of course, like I said, if these games weren't so expensive, they probably wouldn't need to do that, but, these companies went to make these huge triple $100 million games, and they don't need to do that. But because they're doing that, doesn't hurt if they spread the games out to these other consoles, to these other systems, other platforms, whatever. And yeah, I mean, I think just in general though, it's true. You're going to make a whole lot less money if you're putting a game on one platform than you are on putting it on multiple platforms. Now, are there times when exclusives will sell or have sold more than, say, a multi-platform? Sure, that's true. Spider-Man PS4, or at least back, I think when it was just on PS4, it has sold more than on, say, other multiplats. But in general, you're going to make more money by putting your game on multiple platforms than just putting it on one platform. And I'm not going to say that for some platforms it might not be... I'm not saying that it will be easy, especially if, say, you're doing something completely different, like, say, you're porting something over to the Switch. That might be a bit more difficult, especially if, say, compare, not even necessarily on, with regards to the power and capabilities of the Switch versus a console, but just because of the general architecture as well. I know it's going to be difficult. You know, in a similar stance, I understand that companies, primarily aiming, I'm just speaking on the PC end, they're not necessarily going to go out of their way to make a Linux port. Because it's different than, say, working with Windows. It would be nice, but I understand it's going to be a different challenge altogether to make a direct Linux port. But if you do go out of your way to, say, port to the Switch and port to Linux, then you're going to cater to more people. But just in general, though, having your exclusive, or having these games be exclusive, is only going to, well, it might not hurt you, but it's definitely not going to allow you to sell to your greatest potential. This game's not going to see its full potential if it's just limited to one system, because either people don't feel like they want to buy your platform just to play a game, or if they know a game's going to come over, like, you know, on PC, they'll just wait, and that's completely fine. So you're only limiting yourself if you're going to make this stance. So by all means, port these games, bring them to other platforms. If you want to put your games from PlayStation on PC, you can put them from PC on console. If you want to put them on Xbox to PS4, PS5 to Xbox, do whatever, go crazy. The sky's the limit. Just spread them.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that comes up constantly, and I mean, I hear a lot of, you know, like, console-only players talking about this, and even developers sometimes will talk about this, is the idea that only having to make the game for a single platform, they can optimize it to where it runs as best as possible on that particular platform, and they don't have to worry about different types of, you know, alternate platforms that, you know, would require further optimization, obviously would cost a lot more money, and so on and so forth. But then you end up with situations like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, where this game came out exclusively for PlayStation 5, and it hasn't sold very well. And there's a variety of reasons that could be, you know, for that, but I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that people know it's going to come over to PC eventually, and a lot of people just want to buy it on PC. They don't want to double dip. You know, in some cases, people just don't even have a PlayStation, and so they really don't want to. They don't want to go buy a PlayStation just for one game. They don't really consider it to be worthwhile, like myself and you. But the problem is that if they actually take the time to do that, even though, yes, it will definitely cost them more money, they also expand their audience considerably. You know, whether they're just doing one console and PC, or they're doing a bunch of platforms all at once, yes, they have to spend a lot more money to put it on multiple platforms, to optimize it and everything else. But Capcom in particular has proven that this is not only possible, but it can be extremely profitable. It's why they put out, like, the Resident Evil remakes that they've been doing, and you can get 60 frames per second on multiple platforms. It's like these games are very well optimized. they've proven not only can you put this on multiple platforms and be profitable, but you can actually do good ports on multiple platforms. And it's like you're satisfying your customers, you are improving your sales because people know, hey, this game runs great, it looks great, all of this, even on last gen consoles. I mean, I don't know if it's getting up to 60 frames per second on PS4 and Xbox One, probably not. But it's just, they demonstrate that it is possible to put a game day and date on multiple platforms, have it run really well, and make a great profit despite the extra cost of porting it to multiple platforms. And the reality is, most of the cost anyway is already going to be in just developing the game in the first place. The extra cost of taking the time to port things over, it's probably not anywhere near as significant. Now, true, maybe if they're porting something to multiple platforms, if they're doing PS5, PC, and Xbox Series X, let's just say, just bare minimum, those three, they may end up doubling their budget from having to port it over to the other platforms to get it optimized properly for Xbox and PC. A game, let's say, like if it was Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. But because of how much they will expand their audience, they could very easily make up that cost. And the other thing is that they can also charge people full price. They're going to have more people paying full price, more people buying it day one, and for games where the games are not good, or there's something significant to where people, once they find out about things that they do with the story, like with Spider-Man 2, if they had released Spider-Man 2 day and date on PC, they would have gotten a lot more sales, hands down. And the problem is now that people know what they did with the story, they're already going to lose a ton of sales. And then on top of that, of course, people don't want to spend as much money on it because they know about the story. They know everything that's going to happen in the game. And it's like, yeah, the gameplay is great, but that's all there is. I mean, and the problem is that when you have a game that previously had great stories, great characters, and so on, and then you decide to inject all your garbage into there, now you've lost a bunch of sales on top of the fact that you're not releasing it day and date. The thing is, if they had released Spider-Man 2 day and date on PC, I would have bought it, for sure. Now I'm not going to buy the game because I know what they did with the story, and it's complete trash. What they did to Peter, they made Mary Jane even worse than she already was. Poor Miles got caught in the crossfire, and I know how you feel about Miles, and that's all well and good. I liked Miles as a character. I liked playing as Miles. His Venom powers are overpowered, but the fact of the matter is that they completely ruined it, and because they did not release it day and date, I am just one example of many people who is not going to buy the game when it comes to PC. Because I'm completely against what they did. Like Final Fantasy VII Remake is one situation where initially I was angry about the story because they changed it so dramatically from what the original game was. But then, of course, someone presented the idea that Remake takes place after Advent Children, and then I'm like, okay, I can live with that. That is actually a good theory. That makes it more interesting to me. I'm willing to accept the story changes with the idea that all the original stuff still happened. And this is just Sephiroth being time travel through the live stream or whatever the heck he's doing, assuming that's actually the case. And everything people have been saying about Rebirth is that it's a huge improvement over Remake, which I already loved, and that it's fantastic in every way. I do know that I don't know all of what they did, but I do know that at least the major thing that ended disc 1, it still happens. So I'm not gonna spoil that for anybody who doesn't know about that, but that's all I'm gonna say. But anyone who played Final Fantasy VII knows exactly what I'm talking about. So anyway, exclusivity is just not a good idea in today's age, especially with just the huge costs of these games, and especially if the game chooses to pull bait and switch and ruin the story, ruin the characters, so on and so forth, like with Spider-Man 2. So, it is kind of funny hearing this though from Sean Layden, because I remember him being one of the people who was like really adamant about maintaining exclusives for PlayStation before when he was still boss. And it's like, I understand, it's like, okay, his mentality's changed a bit because he's seen, of course, how much game budgets have ballooned over time. But furthermore, just, the fact that they did do a day-and-date release with PC, and it sold very, very well. And, I firmly believe it's only a matter of time, and it could be as early as next year that we start seeing at least one day-and-date release with a single-player game, and that it'll basically be them testing the waters. Oh, side note. One of the things that was actually pointed out by a PlayStation YouTuber that I check out occasionally, Mystic Ryan, I'll shout him out, who's a PlayStation fan, but not a fanboy, not by any stretch. He's like completely rational, reasonable guy. He said that he has heard that one of the reasons why it took so long to get Ghost of Tsushima ported over to PC was because, number one, Sucker Punch had never ported a game to PC, but also because they were actually porting Sucker Punch's engine that they'd been using for their past few games over to PC. Oh. Which, if that's the case, because Sucker Punch isn't using like a traditional engine, they're not using Unreal or anything else, that could very well mean, number one, that this could make it easier for them to port some of their back catalog, particularly like Infamous Second Son. I'm pretty sure Infamous 1 and 2 are on like completely different engines, and those ones are probably just going to have to be remade since they were PS3 exclusives. But also potentially the next, whether it's Ghost of Tsushima 2 or whatever it is that they make next. Which, of course, I love Sucker Punch games. Sucker Punch is my favorite developer, so I'm excited about that. We'll have to wait and see what, if anything, happens with that. Either way, Ghost of Tsushima is coming soon. 2 months. Just over 2 months. Alright. Anyway. Any other thoughts on that topic?
No, sir.
Alright, so we have one final topic for this evening, and it is still a PlayStation-related topic. So, of course we knew a while ago that there had been a number of PlayStation live service games that had been canceled. Delayed first and then canceled. One of which appears to have leaked recently. And I don't have any reason to doubt the legitimacy of the trailer that, did you get a chance to watch it?
Yes, I did get a chance to see it. So,
apparently Insomniac was making a Spider-Man multiplayer game. Let me remember what the name of the game was. It was, The Great Web. Spider-Man The Great Web, I believe, is the name of the game. It was just, multiplayer. I mean, basically doing multiverse kind of Spider-Man multiplayer game. Bunch of different kinds of Spider-Man, Spider-Gwen. Obviously, Miles. A variety of other different forms of Spider-Man. I think it was like 5 players at a time. But yeah, this is a game that got canceled. And it looked like it was basically done. I mean, they had a full trailer for it, and I'm guessing that this is probably in some way part of the Insomniac leak, even though I'm surprised it took so long for it to get out, if so. But yeah, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I was definitely surprised, and as you mentioned, the game, or at least based on what we can see in the trailer, it did look rather finished, looked rather polished. So it is definitely surprising that they did cancel this, and I'm not necessarily certain the reason why, what the rationale is behind this particular one, considering the fact that it looks like so much work had already been done. I mean, granted, I could see this, I could definitely see people wanting to get this, or wanting to buy this, wanting to play this screen, and yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of work's been done there. Although I possibly wonder if maybe, I mean, I don't know what they did to make this, but if it's still, say, using the same engine, using same, I mean, I'm guessing it's using the same assets as, say, Spider-Man 2, could this be something that they just say either uh, put in as a patch for Spider-Man 2 and say, hey, here's some multiplayer content for you to play? Or do you think it's something that they could say maybe just use as a multiplayer thing in, say, Spider-Man 3? Because, I mean, I feel like I mean, maybe they don't want to, but I feel like maybe they would want to try to salvage what they had here and at least find some way to put it to use. Because I mean, like, I mean, it definitely seems like it was pretty much ready to go, unless there was something that still was going on. And I mean, granted, even we've seen this before, even with trailers, that there could still be a lot of work that needs to be done. So I don't know in that aspect, but just based on what I've seen here, looks like there's something that could be used. So do you? I guess a question I'll ask you before you get into your thoughts is: do you think this is something that they could try to save for either DLC, whether it's free or paid for Spider-Man 2, or something they would put into Spider-Man 3?
I would say maybe Spider-Man 3, but honestly, I just think it's just dead. So, basically, my thought on this, it's a little hard to judge exactly like how it runs because the only trailer that, at least the one that I saw was, and the one that I shared with you, only went up to 720p, didn't have 60 frames per second. That's not necessarily an indication of how the game really runs, because it's obviously just a compressed trailer that was leaked. Personally, I would be very surprised if this game ran above 30 frames per second with that many people all going and doing their thing at once. I mean, not saying that is impossible, because games like Destiny 2 can do 60 frames per second on the PS5, and you can have up to 6 players. Technically, well, actually, you really can have up to 8 players at a time, or I'm sorry, 12 players at a time in a multiplayer match, and still maintain 60 frames. So potentially with Spider-Man, it could do that. I'm not entirely convinced it would, because it seems like in some ways this would be a little more complicated. But I think that honestly, it's just the problem is they didn't feel like they could put the resources in to keep this going consistently as a live service game, especially because of the fact they actually are, as we've seen from the leaks, they're developing a bunch of single player games over the next, like 5 years. I mean, between, like, they have Spider-Man 3, they have, which is potentially like a 2 or 3 part thing. They have Wolverine, they have another Ratchet and Clank game. Well, I think there was an X-Men game in there. I can't remember, but there's like at least 4 or 5 different projects that they have in the pipeline, and trying to maintain a live service game like this on top of all the other stuff that they're working on. I could understand why it is that they wouldn't be releasing this. I mean, I think it would be cool if they did. I don't know necessarily if it would be something I would want to play, because I just don't really do multiplayer stuff that much. But yeah, I mean, it's, as far as I'm concerned, this is never going to see the light of day beyond the trailer. That's my opinion anyway. But I don't know. I'm a little skeptical at whether it would run well enough. I mean, I'm sure like load times and everything would be great because of, the magical SSD, and also just because Insomniac's a really good developer. They do a really, really good job at making the games, minus the nonsensical garbage messaging that they inject into their games as of late. But they are like very talented developers in terms of the technical side of things. So, I'm just not entirely convinced that it would actually be able to maintain 60 frames per second without significant sacrifices, at least on the base PS5. Maybe PS5 Pro, whenever that comes, could do better, but even that, I'm still skeptical. But of course, anytime I have an excuse to not buy another console. But although I've actually been thinking about that a lot lately, because not because I'm at all interested in buying another console, but more just because I know that there is going to come a point when my PC is no longer going to be powerful enough, at least in terms of my GPU. I'll probably have to upgrade my CPU. And if I have to upgrade those, I might have to upgrade my motherboard and my RAM. And I'm not looking forward to when I have to do that, because it's like, it's going to come eventually. I'm just hoping that I can keep my PC going as is for a while and maybe do more gradual upgrades. I just don't know for sure about like whether or not my motherboard can handle like a 50 series card, because that would be the soonest I would upgrade is with the 50 series, since I'm currently I'm still rocking a 2080 Ti, and that's what I've had since 2019. Wow, it's been that long. 5 years already that I've had that card. At least I think it's either 2019 or 2020 that I got that card. But yeah. It's I mean, it's the fact is like, yeah, it's not doing necessarily 4K 60. I mean, it probably could do 4K 60 if I had a 4K monitor and I was aiming for 4K 60. But I just have never upgraded to 4K, and because I prefer the higher frame rate, and I like 1080p just fine. So, but eventually, it's probably going to get to a point where games, are just not going to be optimized well enough to be able to play the latest games, and I'm just not sure when that's going to happen. Because like right now, the consoles are still very far behind, and of course, most of my specs are like way above where they need to be. But it still comes to a point where like I look at the required specs for like even Horizon Forbidden West that's coming up. And I know in some ways like my specs are definitely higher than what they have recommended for whatever settings. But then there's other areas where it's definitely lower, like my video card. Even though I still don't fully understand video cards. It's like, I'm a PC gamer, but the one thing I don't understand, so the amount of video RAM that you have, because like because mine is 12 gigs of video RAM, but you have like some of the 40 series, which are fewer gigs of video RAM, but they are better cards. They're more powerful, and I don't understand it all. Honestly, I've just never really done that much research. I'm just like, I don't know. I mean, I know that my card is good enough to where I have never had a problem running a game yet, other than Starfield, just because it's horribly optimized. And even then, it still runs fine. I mean, it still runs better than the Xbox. It's just not as good as I want it to run. But anyway, that's all I got. Obviously, I went off into that side tangent about upgrading my PC eventually, which I know is going to be a painful cost when it comes. It's going to hit me eventually. I'm just holding off as long as I can. I mean, if nothing else, I could technically never upgrade my PC, and I'd still probably have more than enough games to last me for the rest of my life. But there will come a point when there's going to be a game I want to play, and I'm going to have to upgrade.
Oh.
I know it's going to happen. I don't know how long I have. So, anyway. Any other thoughts?
No. I think I'm good.
All right. Recommendations and dissuasions. Let's just start us off.
All right. So, I have my primary recommendation. I'm going to have a sort of bonus recommendation. My primary recommendation is to If you're interested in these types of games, there are definitely a wide variety of genres. But Warner Brothers is delisting a lot of their games that were published by their Adult Swim games branch. So games like Samurai Jack, Battle Through Time, Duck Game, and there are a bunch of other games that have been mentioned. Those games will be removed from pretty much every storefront within the next weeks. I think by May they'll be completely removed. So if you want to get those games before they're gone and you want to get them on sale, they should be on sale tomorrow because of the Steam spring sale. So that would be a good time to get them. But my bonus recommendation, which will sort of tie into that, is I recommend 9 Years of Shadow. If you want to play a good Metroidvania game and something that even has a little bit of difference to stand out from other Metroidvania games, because I know some people say Metroidvania games are a dime a dozen these days, and I definitely can agree with that. But I feel like there's enough here that it makes it different, it makes it stand out compared with the other games. So I do recommend playing 9 Years of Shadow. It's available on PC through all three big storefronts, so Steam, Epic Games, and GOG, and it is available on Switch. I don't think it's available on Xbox or PlayStation, but if you have a Switch or a PC, you're good to go. So those are my two recommendations there.
All right. Yeah, I'm definitely interested in that one, but it's, a sea of Metroidvanias, many of which I have a bunch of them that I still need to play that I own. Like, Axiom Verge 2 is one I've been just like, I got it physical a while ago on Switch, and I've been thinking about trying to play it one of these times, but I haven't gotten to it. Like, Guacamelee 2 is another one that I want to actually play, because I haven't played that at all yet. And then just a handful of other free ones I got. There's one, Insanely Twisted Shadow Planet, which I tried playing a little bit many years ago. It's one that a good friend of mine, well, not a good friend, but I mean a friend of mine worked on. He helped develop that. Shout out to Dan Brewington from Effectsville, or at least he used to be with Effectsville. I don't know if he's still with them. Also did all the visual effects for Vanilla Destiny 1. So that even more of a shout out. He was one of the reasons why I started playing Destiny, was because of the fact that I knew a guy who worked on it and did something significant with it. And then of course I also had a couple friends who were with my original Frozen Gamers podcast, who got really into it and convinced me to give it a shot, which of course developed my love for Destiny. And even though I haven't played a lot in recent years, I haven't played as much, especially over the past like 6 months or so. I barely played at all. It still remains my most played game of all time. So, but anyway, so yeah, going to my recommendations. I'm actually going to recommend something that's gonna seem, well, I'm gonna do a twofold thing like you did. I'm going to recommend something that's going to seem a little intimidating to someone who's completely new. But I want to recommend Married to the Games podcast, because these guys have been going now for a little over 12 years. And they are a fantastic podcast. Yes, they're mostly PlayStation guys. There's a little bit of Nintendo, a little bit of Xbox, little tiny bit of PC and Steam Deck. They're primarily PlayStation podcasts, but these are great guys. I recommend just jumping in on the most recent episodes, and if you want, you can go back and listen to the old stuff, because the old stuff is still, you can still access all of it. It's still well worth listening to. It's kind of cool to go back through the history. I mean, I haven't gone back in a long time. The last time I went back to the beginning was when I first started listening, because I started listening about episode 30, and I just went back to the very beginning from there, and then got caught up and have been listening ever since. But fantastic podcast, fantastic guys, great community, lots of cool people in the community to talk to. It's like the only social media I really do is Discord, and I do the Married to the Games Discord because there's just a lot of great people there, and it's really cool conversations we have, and sometimes arguments, and never anything like angry, just more like arguing consoles versus PC and that sort of thing. With obviously me being the PC guy, but yeah, great podcast, well worth checking out. And they're doing episode 600. Well, they always do their centennial episodes in like 2 parts, so they do one that they record normally during the week, and then they have the live show, which is something completely different. Usually a lot less news between the podcast recording and the live show, but maybe there will be something big, who knows. So yeah, 600 this week, and I'm looking forward to going out to Franklin, Tennessee to go to the live show, to see a bunch of people that I'll actually recognize this time in more cases, and it's going to be a great time. But the other thing I want to recommend is Death Stranding. I have been really, really enjoying myself with that game. I've become a bit of a Kojima fanboy, as I've already said. Not to say that I don't think that there are any flaws with the games, because there definitely are, but I'm really enjoying Death Stranding. It is not a walking simulator, regardless of what many people have said, and it is just a fantastic game. From what little I played, I'm still really early in the game, but I'm loving what I played, and from everything I've heard from other fans and all that, it just gets better as you go. So yeah, that's my dual recommendations for this week. So your dissuasion.
My dissuasion, if anyone uses or intends to use the OpenShot video editor, do not use the undo button if you make a mistake. And primarily this is geared toward cases where you have a long clip chopped up into smaller clips. So the reason for that I say don't do that is because there is a problem, and I accidentally did this recently, and it actually happened to me one time beforehand, where I had accidentally trimmed down a audio clip a bit more than I would have cared to. So I wanted to undo what I just did. So I hit undo. And while I did do that, unfortunately it also made a copy of the entire clip, and it overlaid completely with all the other chopped up parts of my audio. So I have to find out where that actual clip is, that is large, because it's hidden behind all these other clips, in order to actually remove it. And this has been a problem the first time when I did it. This time, fortunately, it was a whole lot easier to fix. But I now know, instead of clicking undo, to manually go in and just drag the clip out more and untrim it, because otherwise I will have issues with that again. So don't do that if you ever use OpenShot.
So is OpenShot like basically a Linux equivalent of Premiere or something like that? Or
well, this actually is pretty much Multiply. It's just an open source video editor, okay. So it's sort of like,
that's more what I meant.
Yeah, I guess you could say Premiere, or just like a basic version of, say, Sony Vegas. But yeah, gotcha. It's something that I've heard about sometime, and I had started using that, and especially since I hopped over to Linux, since beforehand I actually had been editing a whole lot of videos within Windows Movie Maker, but then I jumped out of that and then went to OpenShot.
Okay. Yeah, I actually, for a long time, I was using Cyberlink Power Director 16 because it had been recommended by a couple of YouTube channels I watch. But I got to a point where I just had to stop using it because that program freezes constantly. And it just got to the point where it's like I was constantly losing progress on stuff I did, and it was so frustrating. And I'm thankfully my brother-in-law has an Adobe license, and he was able to, and since he only uses it on one computer, he was able to let me use it. So I've been using Premiere ever since. And it took a little bit of getting used to the differences, but now I really like the software. And I'm still like very much a beginner with it, but I like it a lot in general, and it's been working great for me for all the videos I've been putting together. So, and it doesn't freeze on me. I don't think it's ever frozen on me, or well, if it has, usually a simple restart of my computer has fixed the problem. And even then, typically, like if I've lost any progress, it's been very, very little. Oh yeah, and the progress that I was losing, that was with autosave turned on. Like it was on Power Director. So I'm sure that a recent version of Power Director is better, like their like version that you have to pay a subscription fee for. But at least right now, I'm just sticking with Premiere because it works well. And since it's coupled with Audition, I found out Audition works really well for cleaning up audio, which is so helpful. It makes my audio so much better, my videos. So I'm really happy with that. My dissuasion, I don't have anything written down, so I'm going to do this off the cuff. But I would say my dissuasion is that if you want to play a game, but it's on a plastic box that you don't like, stop saying the game is trash and just admit that you like the game. So my dissuasion is don't pretend a game is trash just because it's on a plastic box you don't like. If you're interested in the game, be honest. Who cares what other people think? You can enjoy a game. You can be interested in a game regardless of whether it's on a platform you want to play it on or not. And who cares if people call you a pork beggar? It's like, I don't want to buy this other box just so I can play one game that I'm interested in. But you don't have to lie and say, oh, this game is trash. Because the reality is you're only lying to yourself. Anyway. Now I see my nephew is online playing Helldivers 2, and I'm jealous. So, yeah, that's my dissuasion. All right. So, let's go ahead and get into our closing stuff. So, where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel, I am Xeracon, that is IAMXERACON, so youtube.com/@IamXeracon. I actually put out 2 videos this week. The first one was just covering the details and information regarding Akira Toriyama's passing, and then the other video was also just covering sort of like the news that just popped up about Warner Brothers delisting all of those games that I had mentioned before. So you can go and check those out to get more information about those instances.
Yep, good stuff. I did watch. I can't remember if I commented on both. I know I did on the Dragon Ball one, and
yeah,
the Warner Brothers one. I'm going back and forth on whether or not I want to grab any of those games, because like I didn't grow up with Samurai Jack. Like, I mean, it was on when I was a kid, so I'm pretty sure it was, but I just never watched it. And I mean, like, if I could get these games for a couple dollars, I would probably buy some, but I'm not going to spend more than like $5 for a game because I don't need the games. I don't really care that much. I'll look and see what options they have and see if there's anything that like stands out to me that looks like something I want to check out. And if it's cheap, I'll buy it. But otherwise, like, I'm not spending $40 on that Samurai Jack game. No, just, I don't care that much. It's not that big of a deal to me. But $2, yeah, I'd spend $2 on it. So, anyway, you can find me on YouTube at The Frozen Gamer 87. You can also find my cooking channel at NABD Cooking. For my game channel, I just put out the comparison of BioShock Remastered between the Switch and Steam Deck, Switch OLED and Steam Deck OLED. That one's been doing really well. It's funny, these videos, like, one day they'll be like, okay, I got like maybe 100 views, and then the next day it'll jump up to 1,400 views. Right now my Skyrim one is over 10,000 views, which is huge. I don't have any other video that's even close to that. I think the next closest is like Doom 2016, and the last I checked, it was around 5,000 views, which is still really high for my videos. But yeah, the Bioshock one, I checked it earlier, and I think it was around 1.5 thousand views, which is still, I mean, it's good. But I mean, like yesterday, it was at like 60 some odd views, and then overnight, whoop, just bumps up. So, yeah, but that's a good comparison. And you said that you bought Bioshock and that you're planning to play it soon.
Yes, as soon as I finish 9 Years of Shadows, then I'm gonna start it.
Okay.
That's my plan.
So I just out of curiosity, what about it specifically made you want to play it, or is it just because I've been praising the game so much?
Kind of both. It's you've mentioned it so much that I've been interested, but also it's a game that I've heard about for years, and I've never played it before, primarily just because I didn't have a console that that supported it, like, especially since at the time that was in my Nintendo fanboy phase, so I didn't have any other consoles. But you know, since now having the chance to play it, especially hearing your accolades for the game, I've been very interested in playing it, especially seeing some of the gameplay, especially from your comparison video. I thought that looks really interesting, and I've heard some people even say that it is a sort of spiritual successor to System Shock, which I played some of that and I enjoyed. So that also made me interested in giving this game a shot.
Very cool. Going further here, my next comparison that's coming out on Monday is going to be Bioshock 2 Remastered. And I'll follow that up with Bioshock Infinite, which is not a remaster, because they didn't need to remaster that one since it already looked really good. But yeah, so I will be doing all of those over the next couple weeks, hopefully. Infinite is one of those where I'm not 100% positive, because I would have to record it sometime next week, and because my next week is packed, it's going to be kind of an interesting thing. We'll see if I have time. If not, I'll just have 1 week without a recording, or I guess potentially I could record it sometime Saturday after my 24-hour stream. But that brings up my next thing with that, and that is that on Friday, March 22nd, beginning at 9 a.m. Central Time, I am going to be streaming for 24 hours to raise money for Extra Life, which is a charity that provides money to children's hospitals, basically helping give parents and kids, not only giving kids treatment, but giving parents relief when it comes to a lot of those expenses, and just helping their kids get through all the treatments that they have to go through. I'm a huge proponent of this charity. I haven't had a whole lot of good years in terms of my fundraising so far, but I'm hoping that now that I've gotten my channel up to 150 subscribers, it might even be more than that by this point, maybe I can start to bring in some more people, and I also have some additional sources. But either way, this is my 5th year doing it, so I'm looking forward to it, because it'll be a great time to raise some money for a great charity, even if I don't make a lot. But it's also an opportunity to play video games for 24 hours. So it's like, there'll be breaks in there, for meals, and I'm sure in the middle of the night I'm probably going to have to grab my exercise bike and start riding that while I'm playing a game, so that I can keep the blood flowing and stay awake. But yeah, so I will make sure I'll be posting up about that on my YouTube channel, just for hopefully getting the word out, hopefully get some more people checking it out, whether they donate or not. Even just stopping by and saying hi is really helpful, especially in the middle of the night, and towards the end of the stream, when it becomes harder to stay awake. So, but either way, there's that coming up. And then for my cooking channel, once again, not authentic but delicious. Most recently, I put out my recipe for smoked beef brisket, which very simple recipe. It just takes a long time to cook. The one I did in that video took 22 and a half hours of smoking time, but it was so tender and so it was just falling apart as I was cutting it. It was so good too. But along with that, this next Monday, I'm going to be putting out my barbecue brisket pizza recipe, which is based on the Casey's barbecue brisket pizza, and it's basically just as good. Well, it's better. It's better than theirs, and theirs is extremely good. So, like, no shade thrown at them whatsoever. It's just mine's better because, with the exception of the cheese, and I guess technically the pickled jalapenos, it's all homemade ingredients. So, not that you have to make it with all homemade ingredients, and you don't even have to do it with brisket. You could do it with grilled chicken. You could do it with pulled pork. You could do it with ground beef. You could do it with ground pork, whatever. Any of those are going to be really good, but with the brisket, it's like top tier. So, yeah, but that's what I got. So, last chance. Anything else you want to say before we finish out?
Oh, actually, I do have one thing that I probably should have mentioned earlier. Contrary to what Steam will tell you about Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, it does run on the Steam Deck.
Okay.
Yeah,
good.
And also it doesn't get past 60. It's pretty much locked to 60, but you will get pretty much 60 all the time. Only time it drops is at the end of a certain cutscene when you're doing a special move, but it only drops like when you're not even in control of that part, and the cutscene's playing out. So it's probably about 1 or 2 seconds long. But other than that, it's pretty much 60 all the time.
Very good. All right. I just realized I don't even have an outro here, so I'm going to wing it once again. So, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I am Zaracon. We are the Orange Box Podcast. And until next time, just enjoy life as much as you can. Orange Box Podcast out.